Welcome to the demo for the Power BI custom visual Simple Waterfall. Simple Waterfall allows you to create waterfall charts for different data scenarios. This video will guide you how to use Simple Waterfall for some of the most common data scenarios. In the first demo, we will show you how to create waterfall chart using measures only. Each pillar or step is defined by a measure. Let's have a quick look at our measures first. We will create a simple table to show you what each measure is. The table of the report canvas that you can see is showing the measures that we have already defined. This is a very common scenario. In this example, we have gross sales, net sales, and gross margin, which are the pillars, and the rest of the measures are steps. If I select this table, you can see the only information I have are just these measures. All of these measures have been predefined. Let's create a waterfall chart using the Simple Waterfall visual using these measures. If you haven't already imported the visual, you can do so from the marketplace. I'm using the November 2019 Power BI desktop version, which has the latest Office ribbon. If you're using an older version, your menu items may look different. To import a custom visual, you can click on these three dots and select Import from Marketplace. This will bring up a window showing all the visuals available in the marketplace. Simply search for Simple Waterfall. And you can see it here. Click Add and Update if you get that warning message. And you can see the custom visual now appears in the visualization pane. Once you have imported the custom visual, click on the icon Simple Visual from the visualization pane. This should create a new visual on the canvas. Drop the measures that are necessary in the visual. In our case, it's going to be the same measures that we have used to create this table. As we start dropping these visuals, you can see the waterfall chart now starts coming to life. You can move the measures around on this visual in order to lay them out exactly the same way the table is. So the gross sale would be the first, discount will be the next, and so on and so forth. The next thing we need to do is to define which of these measures are the pillar measures. To do so, go to the visualization pane and select the properties section. Within the define pillars section, you can see all the measures, and all you need to do is to switch the ones which are pillars. So in our case, it's going to be gross sales, net sales, as well as gross margin. The default option in case of define pillar section is always off. That is, by default, all measures are created as step bars instead of pillar bars. This can be useful as you can create additional steps in your data without breaking the visual. That's it. Your waterfall using just measures is now ready. If you need to move them around, you can simply just move the measures and the waterfall will reflect the same sequence of the measures as you have dropped them into the fields values. In the second demo, we will show you how to create a deliberate waterfall. Let's understand our data first. In this scenario, we have a table that is showing us the gross sale and the gross margin for 2 years, and the third column, that is the last column, is showing the difference between the two. In this case, when we want to create our waterfall chart, the gross sale and gross margin should be the pillars, and the difference for each year should be the steps. Now let's create the waterfall chart. Let's move this around. Select our waterfall chart. Let's make this big enough. And now let's just drop exactly the same fields that we have used here. In this case, we will not use the steps because it will be created automatically by the visual. So let's just drop the year gross sales as well as gross margin. And now you can see that we have automatically created a drillable waterfall. It is still not drillable, which we'll come on to in a minute, but you can see how easy it is now to create the steps just by dropping two measures and the difference becoming the steps. But you can also extend this to more than two measures. So in our case, if we then also drop net sales, you can see it automatically gives us the options of creating the pillars using the measures total, and each step is the difference between the two measures defined by the categories here. Let's make this full screen so that you can actually appreciate this visual. Now, we say this is a drillable waterfall. So now let's create it and make it drillable. Just like measures, you can also drop as many categories that you want. So now let's drop the country in there. You can see the drill down options are now available. Clicking on the drill down button creates a waterfall chart for both year and country. We'll use the last option of drill down, which is expand all down one level in the hierarchy. And you can see now that our waterfall chart extends not just to the year, but also for each country. To see how each of these numbers have been calculated, you can simply hover your mouse on them, and you can see it shows you the two numbers that it has used, and the difference of the two becomes the step pillar. That's it. This is how easy it is to create a drillable waterfall. As I said before, you can drop more than one category in here. So if now we go and drop products, you would notice we have the third category here. Now, given the number of data points you have, it does look quite large. So what I recommend is you filter your data for in such a scenario. Now you can always hover your mouse and you can see what's going on in there, but I'm sure you would appreciate this is probably not what your users would want. So either you can filter your data. So let's say in our case we just want to look at one country, or maybe just one product, maybe two, and the users can then choose between these. You would have also noticed that when you hover your mouse, you can see the information. But what about the other options here? So let me show you how those work. So if we go all the way up again, you can see I'm back to my year drill down, and this option allows you to drill down one item at a time. So if I just want to know what's happening in 2014, if I simply click on here after selecting this option, you would notice that I now only see 2014 by the different countries. Now, the reason I only see Canada is because I have filtered on Canada here. Let's just remove this filter. And now you can see what's happening in all the countries for those years. Going further down, I can then click on France to see the movement by different products. So, just to show you how this would work, the total that I had for France, the steps, the movement, the difference, is £724,000. When I drill down into it, it's split into 3 products, and the total of these 3 products is £724,000. I hope that makes sense. This works exactly the same way as a drillable bar chart works. The difference in this case is that the difference between the bars is now a step pillar. Now, it doesn't always have to go down. This can also go up. But the example that we have is probably not the best example, but to give you an idea, if I just switch this around, you will notice that. Let's move them back. And that's it. And that's how you create a drillable waterfall. Thank you. In this third demo, I will show you how to create a waterfall when the steps are defined as categories. This is slightly different to the first demo that we saw. In the first demo, all the steps and pillars were defined as measures. In this case, they are defined as a category. Let's have a look. We have a simple table here that is defined as rows and just values, and the categories have been defined in the rows. This means each of our pillar, again the same pillars, which is the gross sales, net sales, and gross margin, instead of being defined as measures, are now defined in categories. How would you create a waterfall chart? Let's have a look. Let's create the canvas, visual with the canvas. There we go. Let's move this to the side so that you can actually appreciate the visual again. And now let us drop the same information here. So my categories would go in categories, and my amount would go into the values. And now you can see that we have a very simple waterfall. This is not exactly what we want, but you can appreciate what it's doing. It's taking every single value and then giving you the total at the end. Now it is also adding all of these values, which is what we don't want. To appreciate this in a slightly different way, we can, instead of categories, use month and year. And you can see all the months and years are now defined as a step, giving you the total. You must have noticed that this is not sorted in the right order. And the reason is the order of the steps is taken as defined in your data model. So it's a very common scenario where you need to define the order of these. In my case, I just have to simply go in and change the column and sort it by date. And you will notice now that the visual should sort itself in the right order. Well, not clearly. The reason is, obviously, you have to define the sort order in the visual. There you go. Not exactly what we wanted, because this is in the descending order. Let's make it in the ascending order. And you can see all the years are now well defined. So you can define the sort order of the visual based on the sort order defined for each category. Let's move on to our actual example. Let's replace the month and year with category. As I said, this is not exactly what we want. So how do we define the pillars? Exactly the way we have done it in the first demo, the static measures one, where we only used measures. We are going to define the pillars in the property pane. So come onto the property pane and select define pillars. You can see all of them have been defined here for you to choose from. The amount by default becomes a pillar. But as soon as you switch on at least one of the pillars, you would notice the amount goes away. And just like that, you can define the pillars here. And that's it. That's how you can actually define a waterfall using categories. This can be extended to become a drillable waterfall. So, for example, if I drop country here, this is still drillable, but something you need to notice here. So, let's just understand how you can use this. If you want to understand what is the discount of 9.2 million is split by country, you can right click, drill down, and you can see the split by country. If you go one up, let's just do it again on material cost. The same. You can even do this on pillars. And you will notice that for each of the pillars, the 108 million is defined by individual countries. And so on and so forth. You can add as many categories as you want. The one thing to notice is the option to go expand all. When you expand all, you will notice, let me make this full screen for you. You will notice it's actually, there are no more pillars. There's only one pillar, which is amount, which is correct in case of a waterfall chart. And that's it. This is how easy it is to define categories as pillars in a waterfall chart using Simple Waterfall Custom Visual. I've shown you how to create waterfall using different data model options. The first demo was using just measures. Then we created a drillable waterfall where the steps are calculating using the difference between two subsequent measures. And in the final demo, we were using just one category and one measure to create a waterfall. Now let me show you some of the formatting options that we have in Simple Waterfall. On the canvas, you can see two Simple Waterfall charts one which is drillable, one which is created just using static measures, and two standard charts, the bar chart and the line chart. And I'm just going to show you some of the features that are available. The obvious ones that we have are the interactions, the bookmarks, the report tooltip, drill through. All of that is available. To give you an example, if I click on United Canada, you would notice all the graphs change. So all the clicks, interactions are available. We also have a report tooltip. So in this example, when I hover my mouse on any of these charts, the report tooltip has been defined. Now, the report tooltip has not been defined on country, it has been defined on products. So when you hover your mouse, you can see the report tooltip works as expected. Let's see some of the other formatting options. When you select a static measure or a waterfall, using a single category, you have got a lot of options available. We have already seen the define pillar feature. One thing to note is this option is not available when you're creating a drillable waterfall where you have more than one category as well as more than one measure. So in case we select this visual, you don't see the define pillars option. And the reason is you would only see the pillars are defined using the measures here. So every single measure becomes a pillar. Moving on to the next option, which are the sentiment colors. In this case, you can select different colors for each sentiment. These are the default options available, but you can change them. So in our case, let's say if you want our pillars to be in a slightly different color, you can. And if you want the adverse to be a different color, so you can. So you can do the favorite one as well. Moving on to the static waterfall, this has an additional feature in where you can, instead of defining the colors, the bar colors using the sentiment colors, you can define the colors for each bar separately. So in our case, we can define the color for each bar separately. So let's just go and change some of them to show you the capability here. As you can see, you can have different colors. Moving on, you have the obvious options for the x-axis, the font size, the font color, and the font family. You can change all of them. For the y-axis, you have the option of completely switching it off. When you switch it off, you see a clean waterfall with no y-axis and no grid lines. Let's switch them on again. Other than the usual options that you have for the y-axis, you have this option to change the format of the values that you see on the y-axis. By default, it is always auto, which means it will format itself into thousands, millions, and billions. If you instead select none, it will format it in the same format as the individual measures. You also have the options for the grid lines. Moving on to the labels. Other than the usual options that you have, here's two specific ones that I would like to highlight. You can obviously use the default font color, but when you switch it off, you can see you can actually choose the font color for each bar separately. Let's just try and change one of them. Now, these options are also dependent on the sentiment colors that we choose here. As an example, in our case, the sentiment colors is off. If I switch it on, you will notice that even for the labels, the only option you have are the sentiment colors. Let's switch it off again. Moving on. The other option I would like to show you is the positioning of the labels. You can see by default, you can choose one of these four options. But if you switch off the default positions, you can see you can position each label separately for each of the pillars. So for example, for cross sale, I can choose inside center, and you can see this moves inside center. As in the case of the font colors, this is also dependent on the sentiment colors. So if I switch on the sentiment colors, which means now you only have these three options, the same thing happens for the labels as well. So now when I move this into inside center, all of these three move inside center. Of course, you can still change the font colors to make them visible. The other option I would like to show you is the option to value format. That is the formatting of each of the labels. If I move this again to the outside, you can see them. So instead of having none, you can choose auto, and just like the y-axis, each of the labels would format itself into thousands, millions, and billions, and trillions, depending upon the data that you have on your chart. One of the options that gets highlighted when you select auto is the option to convert the negative values into brackets. So for example, you can see 107 million is a negative figure. You can switch this on to move them into brackets. This is quite common when you're creating financial reports, to convert the negative numbers into brackets. And the last option I would like to show you is the option to hide blank values. I hope you have enjoyed this demo and liked the Simple Waterfall custom visual. I would like to thank all the community members for providing their feedback for version 1. I have learned a lot from version 1 and I hope to do the same from version 2. So, if you have any suggestions, questions, feedback or requests for new features, please use the GitHub page or drop me an email. You can see the details on the screen. And I would like to thank you for your patience during this demo, and I'm really looking forward to see how you will use this visual to create great stories and insight for your customers. Thank you.